sales channel focused on supporting brands and agencies across the US as they transition to the cookieless future and navigate their digital growth. Welcome, Jackie and Taylor.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us. All right, I am excited for this one, and thank you to Brand Innovators for organizing all this. It's been 3 days of really great content, and for everyone who's stuck with all the content for 3 days, kudos to you. Excited to have you on. We are going to have a little bit of time, hopefully at the end, for Q&A. The topic is around marketing leadership, so we probably won't get to the questions about the last season of Game of Thrones, although a lot of people are probably curious. If you have questions, pop them in the chat. I'll do my best to get to them towards the end here. But very, very excited to be sitting down with Jackie today. We're going to focus on, obviously, Jackie's knowledge and insight and what her perspective and everything today. I just wanted to quickly share a little bit about Quantcast. You already had my intro there, but just quickly for folks who aren't familiar with Quantcast, we started as an audience insights and measurement company for publishers. We're now the world's largest audience behavioral platform for the open internet. We have over 150 million web and mobile destinations with tagged, which enables us to continually map consumer behavior in a first-party compliant way, which is obviously really important for advertisers, brands, and agencies right now. But obviously the focus today, Jackie, excited to have you on here. Where are you dialing in from? How are you doing today?
I am doing great. It's nice to see you again, Taylor. I'm dialing in from Maplewood, New Jersey, where I have been working from my home, as many of us have, for the last, who knows how long. We've all lost track of time, right? Normally I work, we're based, HBO Max we're based in Hudson Yards in New York City. And so have started going back a little bit, but for the most part, I'm still continuing to work from home.
Cool. Yeah, and I think that's one of the topics we wanted to lead off with a little bit here, the hybrid work approach, and everyone's still getting used to it. I just noticed I think I downloaded my background backwards, so you can't read marketing leadership above my head, or at least it looks mirrored to me.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Oh, okay, just backwards on my screen. We're all still figuring out Zoom and all this. With hybrid and how it is going or working, over at HBO, I'm just curious, for you overseeing a large team, obviously it's easier in the office to see the people you work with, specifically the people reporting to you, kind of get a read on how they're doing and the work that your team's doing. How have you approached that as a leader within a large org and adapted to kind of this new approach?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's true. It is, it is easier to sort of have a sense of how people are doing, certainly in person. And I think, from a marketing perspective, just the work you do, the creative process, the collaboration, being in the same room is so vitally important. But obviously we were not able to do that for the better part of the last year and a half. And so as we move to sort of this completely remote model, I really made it a priority to stay as connected to the individuals, to my team as possible. And so I already had a pretty regular meeting cadence with my direct reports. We meet every week. And so, obviously kept that up. Also started meeting more regularly as a whole team. That's a team that's a meeting that maybe happened a couple times a month, but moved that to a weekly cadence for several months, and with no, sometimes no hard agenda or just a few agenda items, but really an opportunity for everybody to just get together, to see each other, and to just connect and see how people are doing. I also just periodically would just, reach out to people, particularly the newer members of our team, the more junior members of our team who you may have really challenging work from home situations. Maybe they have a lot of roommates or they're working from their beds and they're and so really, made a point to reach out to, to reach out to those folks to see how they're doing. And I'll say, it continues. We're slowly making our way back to the office, but I will tell you, the company encouraged, and I'm a strong believer of this. We just had our mid-year conversations, and we were encouraged to spend a good amount of that time talking about people's well-being. How are they doing? It's just so important.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I would totally agree with you. That's one of the things maybe I've missed most from being out of the office, is being able to, kind of get a pulse check from folks. Is there a way maybe for you, because, being remote right now, is there a way that you've seen be effective to get a gauge on how people are feeling? Are there things that maybe you share with the team, or questions you ask of the team to try and get a sense for how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think just to, I like to laugh during the day. It's it's TV, it's entertainment, it's fun, it's okay to laugh. So I think the ability to sort of start things off on a lighter note and see how people react is something that I often do. I think I'm also, I have about 20 people on my team. So, I know there are people with organizations, hundreds of people. And so I feel like I know everyone pretty well, and I can get a sense when people are not themselves, even over Zoom. And so there have been times where I'll say to somebody, you know what, you don't seem like yourself today. And just, provide, I guess, the opportunity to have a discussion about that. And if, if someone doesn't want to, obviously, respecting that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Gotta find the line. But I love that you take such a personal approach with the team. That's really important. One of the things we talked about when we connected earlier, we talked about your journey to becoming this leader and this force within HBO. And I thought it was such an interesting story. And I know there's probably a lot of people listening here who are maybe looking to grow as a manager, or they're not a manager yet, and they want to think about how they maybe present themselves in that light. So I was curious if you could talk about that a little bit, and kind of how you, changed perceptions internally and grew within your org.
Oh yeah, I think we did talk about how when you stay at a company, I stayed at the company for a while, and sometimes you're in a role and you want to move up, and there's sort of a perception about what what your role is, or what what your about your abilities, I should say. And so, sometimes it makes it difficult to make the next move. Maybe you're considered, for me personally, you're considered a doer, not a strategic thinker. And so there's a few different ways that I personally dealt with that. I think that certainly raising my hand for stretch assignments, that was really important, and I certainly encourage people to do that, anyone who finds themselves in a sort of a similar situation. But really, paying attention to, is there an opportunity? Is there, there's that project that you can help somebody out on, that would really, give you an opportunity to demonstrate those skills, or that strategic thinking. So that's certainly something. Also, being very intentional, I think, about the language that you use. I found that in email communication and just in interactions, just being really mindful about what is sort of sometimes it's just the change in how you phrase things, or how you're describing projects or initiatives, that can sort of change things change people's perception there. And it might be.
Is that more confidence, or is that more just kind of the detail involved? What does that look like?
I think it's both. I think it's confidence. I also think it's the detail involved, and being, knowing your audience, right? And what is this person really, how much detail are you sharing? Is it like appropriate for the situation or for the individual that you're speaking to? So I think you have to take that into account. For me personally, leaving the company became, there was a great opportunity for me to gain new skills, and to essentially, and then come back to HBO in a different position, and from there have been been really fortunate to move up in the organization.
Very cool. Yeah, we did talk about that, being prepared to leave being one of the things that you think about as you're building that career. Speaking of hiring and leaving and joining organizations, we also talked about, and I think this is one of the most important, but also toughest skills for a leader, is the hiring process. You want to have a really strong culture fit. You're also trying to hire for some specific skills. And I'm just curious how you seek to strike that balance within your own team.
Sure. I mean, I think for, for the work that we do with the multicultural marketing, for me, I really look for the passion. Right. And so people who are really passionate about this work. And that means, sometimes you may not have, there may be some particular skills that I feel like that can be taught, depending on the position and, who, who will be, managing. I think some of those things can be taught, but you can't teach somebody, right, to be passionate about this kind of work and to really care about it.
Sure.
To have a really, again, also for our, the work we do, to really, be interested in culture, connected to culture. That's really important as well. So, there are those things that I sometimes, you weigh a little bit more heavily. Certainly, if you're meeting with candidates, it's like they're qualified for the position, right? It's really about how have they demonstrated their ability to their passion or their cultural fluency, or what other kinds of things have they done or experienced that would really add to the collective work of the team.
Interesting. And is that primarily by looking at kind of their prior work or projects that they've been involved in? Because I think sometimes maybe passion can be presented in an interview where maybe it's not something that they have, but they know they got to present for the role. Do you look for kind of prior experience, prior involvement? Is that kind of on your list?
Absolutely. There's certainly people who come to us with multicultural marketing, but sometimes, again, depending on the position, maybe, for a more entry level position, maybe it's someone who, they were really active at their college, in organization and doing this work. It's something that they took on their own, or it's a club that they were a member of, or I meet with some people who they're like in a related field, but not exactly the same. But they just took it upon themselves at their organization to maybe they were really active in a business resource group, or they wanted to really volunteer their time in diversity and DEI efforts. So sort of looking at all of those things, to looking sort of at the whole package, and recognizing that sometimes candidates might you need to open up your sort of thinking when you're hiring for these roles.
Absolutely. And we're talking about passion. We didn't talk about this earlier, but I'm curious kind of what sparked your passion for multicultural marketing. And then maybe you could speak a little bit about some of the projects that you decided to focus on at HBO. I'm sure there's a lot of different things that you and your team could be working on, but you've recently, put in place a few really large scale projects. So I'm curious what generated that passion for you initially, and then how you channeled that into some projects here.
Sure. So, I mean, for me, I think a lot of it's from my personal background. I am, first generation Cuban American. And, I grew up in sort of this, I'm bilingual, I am bicultural, and so have really, spent my life sort of, living in those worlds, and really having an interest and an appreciation for different cultures. And I early on, I've always been in marketing. And I think that what's interesting to me about that is, because I did grow up bicultural, bilingual, I spent my life as a translator. So I've always been sort of translating, either for my parents or for other people. Not just like there's the language, but the translation of ideas and concepts. And so I think, generally speaking, in terms of like marketing and the work I do, I think there was a very sort of like natural evolution
Sure.
to doing that. And then I think that for HBO in particular, we had an incredible legacy of diverse storytelling, and highlighting storytellers. But I was very excited by this idea of launching this new sort of group within our broader consumer marketing organization. And that opportunity for me, it ultimately something that ended up growing, being able to grow the department, grow the vision for it, and 8 years later, it's been it's been great.
Nice. Is there anything on tap for Q4 2022 that you're really excited about that you can share with us?
Yeah, sure. So we have, as part of our work, we certainly support a number of, we support the programming. So if you're HBO, HBO Max fans, certainly, Insecure is a huge title for us. We have a lot of, about to kick off some pretty exciting work there. And we also recently launched an audience initiative. It's particularly for the Black audience, called Seen in Black. We launched that last week. And so just very excited about, rolling out that platform and having the opportunity to particularly like focusing on, particularly in a social space, to really be able to spotlight and elevate the talent and of the talent of color on the platform, as well as just the Black creative community as well. And we did a similar effort for the Latinx community earlier this year, called Palante, and so we continue to grow that platform, and use it to leverage it to promote the content on HBO Max.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and we did talk a little bit about that, and I think HBO has really been leading the way there in a lot of ways, and so cool to be a part of that and really leading those efforts. One of the things I think that folks in marketing leadership positions maybe struggle with is just how many channels there are now, how many ways to get your message out. When you think about building these communities and building the platform, how do you at a high level kind of think about, okay, we've got social, we got digital, we got TV, we got out of home, there's a million different things going on. How do you think about getting that message out and deciding how you're going to kind of pick a channel and pick your strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I think this is true for all marketers, but from a multicultural perspective, you want to go where your audience is, right? That's where you want to be. So in the case, for us, I mentioned Seen in Black and the Black audience. This is this is an audience that's very engaged in social. And so it made sense that for that particular initiative, that it have a very strong social presence, right? And then once you're looking at sort of the channels available to you on social, it's a matter of determining what will be the role of each platform, because they're all so different, right? Twitter is obviously very different from Instagram, is very different from Facebook. And so knowing sort of what your broader goals are, developing your strategy and understanding what role those different platforms can play in something like that. Obviously, budget is is also a consideration. Super Bowl spot comes with a a hefty price tag, right? And so, yeah, I think you have to look at, where is your audience? What is your budget? Again, from a multicultural marketing perspective, being able to do to be really targeted, so efficient in your media choices. And looking at, we also leverage a number of partnerships, and that's that also speaks to going where your audience is. So for example, we do partnerships with, Essence Magazine has a festival every year called Essence Fest. And we partner with them on that, and all these various organizations. And that just allows us, again, to reach the audience where they are, and to also leverage our partners' platforms to help amplify the work that we're doing. So that often plays a big role in our planning.
Got it. Yeah, it's a lot going on. So I have a team of 20 to help you out there. The other thing I think, as people climb up the career ladder and they notice that their time shrinks and shrinks, and the demands on your time from a team of 20, from everyone else at HBO, how have you kind of adapted your approach to work-life balance, both as your role has gotten more and more complex, and as the hybrid model has forced us back home?
Yeah, that's been challenging, for me, and I think for all of us, right, or a good number of us, is how, with the working from home, a lot of the boundaries have blurred. And, I know people found themselves sort of, morning going into night, into not being able to sort of, disconnect. And I think that made even more challenging by the fact that we're so used to being so hyper connected anyway, right? And so I think it was just sort of like it was magnified during the lockdown. But I like to say I'm a restless person, and so that probably served me well for this, in that I can't sit still for a very long time. And so that sort of forced me to get up, during, literally get up during the day and walk around, even if it's for 5 minutes or for 10 minutes, or if I can get outside and go for a walk, or, just finding sort of these little breaks during the day was just incredibly helpful. I mean, we know it, right? We've all read the articles and listened to the podcasts about how you should, but we don't do it. But you do feel so much better when you do. And I know I personally am so much more productive when I do it.
Absolutely.
If I'm wrestling with a project and I can't get the words, and then I'll go walk down the block and, get some sun on my face, and I come back, then I, invariably I will, just being able to approach it with sort of that new mindset just makes me a better worker. So, and I encourage my team as well. I'm like, it's a beautiful day. Did you go outside for a minute? Did you?
Well, that was going to be my question, is how to, maybe encourage it for folks. One of it, I think, is modeling the behavior, but, you got some folks who are, really wanting to stay at their desk. How do you kind of maybe pry them away?
I mean, that's hard, right? So sometimes, maybe it's you schedule. I used to, early on, I was scheduling, we would have our staff meeting, and then there was like this, we'd have a time afterward. I would schedule like an extra 15 minutes. And that was just like, it was just 15 minutes for whoever wanted to stay to just like catch your breath, right? So the meeting is over, but you have 15 minutes and you can be on Zoom or not, you can be on screen or not. And if you want to use that time to make a sandwich, because that's the other thing, people were not stopping to eat, right?
Right.
So you can, if you want to use, we can talk, you can tell me how you're doing, you can use the time to make yourself something to eat. Like, so, again, I like I said, I like to approach a lot of what I do like with humor, and so I try to create moments like that so people would just be like, okay, all right, I'm gonna take 2 minutes, and
Now, how is the walking strategy going to change when it's January, February? Don't have the sun coming out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it won't change. I'm one of those people who, I'm a runner, so I run every morning, rain or shine. So I will get out there. Like, I know that's harder for some people, but yeah, then it's just a matter of like, you're inside and you'll have to just, figure out something, jog around your dining room table or something.
Sure. Well, good for you getting out there.
Yeah.
We also, one of the topics we talked about as well was kind of the importance of having a diverse team, and what that does for you, as a group. And I was curious if you could chat a little bit about that, what that means for you at HBO, and what that, I guess, how to define that a little bit, because, I think people hear diverse team, they think of a lot of different ways. How kind of you think about it, and what it's brought for you at HBO?
Yeah, I mean, it's critically important, certainly in general, and certainly for the work. Our team is very diverse in every sense of the word, meaning that we're very reflective of the audiences that we serve, and in our work we're focused on Black, Latinx, AAPI, and LGBTQ plus communities. And so, our team members are reflective of that audience, but then we're also diverse, in other ways. There's gender and age and just experience, like number of years, but also like the actual experience. And, I think, again, we've all seen it's good for business. We've all seen it. It's no longer just like a nice to do or like the right thing to do. It's we want to be successful, especially, we're a global brand. We have to do it because that is what is going to give you better outcomes. It's what it's going to make your teams you're more innovative. And then certainly, again, in terms of our work, to have people at the table who are creating these campaigns. Our focus is on building culturally relevant campaigns, right? Because we really want to connect with our audiences in a way that's very that's authentic. And so that means having people around the table who can ask the right questions and who are, connected to the audience, or, who have a particularly, strong point of view about it. It just makes the work better. And we also engage partners in much the same way. Like we work with a number of agencies, and we look for partners who have teams that are, again, reflective of the audiences that we serve.
Yeah, that's so important, especially for the authenticity element. And you talked about, being around the table, kind of how that, can maybe create some more innovation. Obviously, we were talking earlier about, remote versus in office. Do you feel like coming back to the office, one of the benefits is going to be maybe it's easier for people to ask those questions and share ideas? Is that one of the things that you're maybe looking forward to when you get people more physically close?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me personally, speaking from personal experience, I think our team, my team, we do a lot of experiential events. We build a lot of brand experiences. So we're used to sort of moving around a lot and working remotely. So we had sort of a certain degree of experience doing that. So I feel like so at the end of the day, the work didn't suffer when we went to this model. But yes, absolutely. I think, it's always nice to be, to be together. The energy is different. We all have good, it's a very strong, we're a very close team. And so I think just like the physically being together will be nice.
Cool. Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to building that back in a little bit as well. Baby steps. I love hearing that your team is so close. You talked earlier about knowing those folks on your team, and we talked a little bit about one of the ways to build that trust and encourage people to share how they're feeling, to contribute ideas, is by being a vulnerable leader, and how that does create kind of trust flowing back the other way. So I was curious, kind of how you how you accomplish that and what that has looked like for your time as a leader here at HBO.
Yeah, that took me a while to learn. I think, early on in my career, I had a perception of what professionalism looked like. And it was very sort of like, it looked like this.
Yeah.
I think part, a lot of different reasons for that. Again, I think part of, sort of culturally, the way I grew up, being first generation, not having parents who were, necessarily in the corporate world. And so it was very important to sort of have this professional look if I was going to be taken seriously. And then, as I, moved up and, started managing people, I was still sort of doing this. And I was working for a woman at the time, and she said, you're trying to just be perfect. Like you're trying to give off sort of this perfection, and it makes it so difficult to form relationships when you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable. And I thought about that for a while, and it wasn't easy, but I realized that, it's obviously an appropriate level of vulnerability, but just, letting people know that you don't, I don't have all the answers. We can have a laugh about this. I kind of let that guard down, and it really made a difference in terms of my ability to, connect more fully with, certainly with my team, but also with peers, and just others within the organization as I, work to build those relationships. And so it's just so important. So yeah. I learned that one the hard way, but I think I'm much better at it now.
Well, humor certainly helps. I think that certainly breaks down the walls.
That's absolutely yeah.
And to your point, you don't want to share something that maybe people think you're bad at your job, or it's too personal, or something along those lines.
No, I think it's more it's not personal. It's more a matter of like just people. How can you connect on a, we started this conversation. You asked me, where are you zooming in from? How has that been? Just things like that, that make us, help us connect in a way that's different. That's not just about the work, but
right.
Right.
Yeah, you talked about that view of a leader being, this, and hey, some people maybe think that they can't ask for advice, they can't ask for, clarification because they don't want to appear like, oh, I'm not the absolute expert, and certainly it's been my experience too that it's okay to show that to your team and let them see that you're trying to learn and grow as well. So exactly. Yeah. Absolutely important. And it does sound like I know in a couple of your stories, you've talked about some of the lessons you've taken from folks more senior to you, and it sounds like mentors have been an important piece of your growth and development. Is that a recommendation you have for people trying to grow and move up in their org and try and level up their skills? I guess what role did mentorship play for you in your growth?
Yeah, it played a huge role. I've been really fortunate. I've worked for some pretty remarkable leaders, and so certainly model a lot of my leadership style on theirs. The other thing that made them really great leaders was that they gave me very honest feedback. And so if you can't get that from if a leader, but if you can get, finding somebody who can give you that feedback is just so critically important. Yeah, I think, if you can, they talk about mentors and sponsors, right? But finding people within the organization or not, who can, who know you and can give you, advice, who you can come to sort of work out maybe resolve a situation that you're having. People also talk about having rabbis, right? And so the importance of that's like somebody who's like just really honest with you. So who's going to like really, and a mentor may not necessarily be a mentor, but somebody who's going to be really honest with you about your like how you're approaching your work, what you're really good at, what you need to work on. So yeah, and having, just having a network of people like that throughout your career is definitely very important.
I hadn't heard that rabbi term before, but I love it. That's great. I'm gonna steal that. Did you find it was primarily folks who were within the org with you? Was it former peers and colleagues? Was it friends? Was it family? Where did that network kind of come from for you?
Yeah, for me, a lot of it was people that I worked with, again, because I'm fortunate in that they were particularly women leaders who I was able to form these relationships with. So certainly within the organization, I also have always belonged to professional organizations. I'm currently on the board of ColorCom, which is an organization for women of color in the communications field. And so being able to now I can tap into the board members and get their take on things, or people, just members of the organization. So I would say if it's not within the buildings of your office, maybe it's a professional organization. It can be friends. It can be people in your town who are in the same industry.
Nice. Yeah, there's a lot. I think a lot of people consider, just looking maybe within their management group or someone within their kind of hierarchy, but it can come from so many different ways. I think one of the tough parts as a leader maybe is sourcing feedback from below, and having folks that report up to you be honest with their feedback. I don't know if there's anything you've done to try and source more of that feedback and kind of create, again, that kind of trusting environment that we've been talking about.
Yeah, I think it goes back to sort of those opportunities that I'm very intentional about creating for people, the more junior members of the team to give me feedback, to feel that they have access to me. And I think it's also part of our team culture in that making sure that everybody feels that they can contribute their ideas, and that there's obviously a level of respect and trust. And I think, all of those things combined will, hopefully, make people feel comfortable enough to give you that feedback.
Yeah, it's all tied together.
Mm-hmm.
Are we getting the Oscar music, Toya? Or
Thank you so much, Taylor, and thank you, Jackie. Jackie, I'm in town. I'm South Orange, so I'm looking for a rabbi now. So
You're
let
in
me
South
know.
Orange? I will 100%. Yes, email me. We will meet for coffee.
Will do. Would love
Oh,
that.
that's
At
so, I
Jackie
love
and
it.
Sons. Okay.
I
Thank
love
you
it.
both.
Love it.
Thank you so much
Okay.
for
Thanks,
taking the
Jackie.
time to connect with our audience today.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Take
Thanks
care.
for having me. This was great. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, as we continue on with the day, next up, we have a great conversation with Jenny O. She's the GM of Pepsico Labs and Tech Venture and Innovation at Pepsico. Jenny draws on her 20 plus years of experience in strategy, M&A, finance, innovation within the CPG space, including 15 years at PepsiCo leading in strategy, innovation, and M&A across multifunctional teams. In 2019, she began leading Pep Labs in North America, which aims to drive innovation through partnerships with cutting edge startups and solve critical business needs for PepsiCo. And our moderator will be Ed Fogerty, SVP Ad Sales at ViacomCBS. He's been an unwavering advocate for ViacomCBS's LGBTQ employees, having served as executive champion of the Emerge ERG for the last 7 years. He gives back to the community by serving on GMHC's board of directors. He's also one of my favorite people in the world and should probably moonlight as a travel influencer. Please welcome Jenny and Ed.
Thanks, Toya.
Thank you. It's great to be
Hi.
here.
Hi, it's great to be here as well. Nice to see you again, Jenny.
Hey, Ed. How are you doing?
I'm well. How are you? Everything good on the West
Awesome.
Coast?
Yeah, things are all good.
Well, thanks. We have beautiful California weather here today in New York. So
Oh, brilliant.
perfect. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation because here we are with brand innovators. And Pepsi is one of the most innovative brands in media, but especially the PepsiCo Labs division. But I think a lot of the people that are watching this today might not know the depth and breadth of what PepsiCo Labs do. So can you just how does PepsiCo Labs work?
Yeah, I'd love to give a brief intro. So at our heart, our team, PepsiCo Labs, is really focused on harnessing and enabling PepsiCo to tap into the wealth of innovation stemming from the startup ecosystem. So in today's world, so much of innovation is really being spearheaded by startups. And what PepsiCo Labs does is to find the right startups against the biggest strategic priorities that PepsiCo has, and then to rapidly test them in our business and then scale up the ones that are effective. So for today's conversation, I'm going to focus more on the programs that we run with marketing and media, but my team, PepsiCo Labs, really works across the entire PepsiCo value chain, if you will. So starting all the way from agriculture through manufacturing, supply chain, through to retail execution, marketing, consumer insights, and through to data and analytics, to really focus on our biggest strategic needs. And then we go out looking for the right startups and bring those in to form effective partnerships. So we're pretty broad in how we work, but I think what we really do for PepsiCo is enable us to focus on our biggest needs as we look at startups, because I think, for startups and large corporations like Pepsi, there's so much value to be had in working together, but often we find it extremely challenging to actually work together. I think for those of us on this panel and on this call, whether you've been on the startup side or the corporation side, you've probably experienced some of those challenges. And I don't need to spell them all out,
sure.
but yeah, for a large corporation, often it can be very distracting, and it's very cool to see what's happening in the startup world, but figuring out exactly how to apply those solutions in our business can often be challenging. So what we do is make sure that we stay very focused as we engage with the startups, and then identify the small set of startups that can really move the needle for our business. That ended up being a little bit long-winded, but hopefully that gives you a grasp of what we do.
It's long-winded. I also was digging into the PepsiCo Labs website as well, which was super cool. So I would say to anyone that wants to look more after this call, they should pop onto there. But just for clarity, you're talking about startups and bring them in for partnerships. It's a partnership, right? It's not. Is it an acquisition and you bring the company in-house, or is it a true partnership in the sense that they stay as their startup company and PepsiCo works with them?
Yeah, my official title is Tech Venturing and Innovation. So we do some investments, but our primary focus is really on that strategic partnership. And if investments enable us to form that strategic partnership and further our strategic goals, we'll do that. But really, the crux of what we do is forming those commercial arrangements and partnerships and deep kind of collaborations that enable us to partner effectively with that startup.
That's cool. So you talked to part of the conversation just then was about brands. So
Yeah.
let's talk about Pepsi Brands with the depth and breadth of brands at PepsiCo, like each having their own goals, their target audiences, their ROI. How are the brands integrated into the labs process to select the company to work hand in hand with? Does it start with the brands? Does it start with corporate and then it kind of fits in like a big puzzle? Like how does that whole work?
It's a little bit of that. So it's really two ways. So, the way we work with the different functions, what we've found particularly effective is to partner super closely with our global functional leads. So for example, in marketing and media, we partner hand in hand with our global media innovation team, who are deeply